I used to really struggle quitting porn until one day, about 3 years ago, I discovered the one thing that was holding me back from quitting porn. And since I actually changed that thing, I've never watched porn in my entire life again. So in this video, I'm going to first of all share with you my story so that you know that if you are in a similar situation, the things I'm going to share with you are 100% going to work for you too. Then secondly, I am going to review you the one thing you need to change that is keeping you back from actually quitting porn, even though you're trying really hard, even though you're struggling, and even though you may have already had some major streaks. And then I'm thirdly going to share with you how to make this changement as quickly as possible. Because let me tell you this, when you change this one thing, watching porn will be literally as hard as it is right now for you to not watch porn. And until you don't change this one thing, you're always going to get back again and again and again. And this was the cycle I was in, to be really honest, just about 3 to 4 years ago. I was there getting back from home, always in the same situation, being bored because I had some homework to do or some other bullshit thing from school. And when I was not doing that, I was on my phone scrolling and watching girls shaking their asses basically on Instagram, or watching some anime or some Netflix. And I used to start getting bored. And when that happened, that's when I actually started to get my urges. And the thing is that at the beginning, I had literally no clue about NoFap and those kind of things. So at the beginning, I was literally just fucking up my mental health and my life, my health, my, everything. I was not even able to look girls in their eyes for more than 1 second. Not even thinking about talking to a girl, zero motivation for doing hard things, zero energy, was just fucked up, to be really honest. But then I learned about NoFap. And even though I was, listening to those 100,000 tips and tricks on how to quit fapping, and I was actually, getting into longer and longer streaks, I was always getting back. I was always, I remember a scene very clearly where I had been in a streak for about 4 months, if I'm not mistaken. And then one day I fuck up again. And in that post-nut clarity, I felt a big sense of, dissatisfaction with myself, nearly being disgusted with myself and asking myself, bro, I've not watched porn for 4 months now. Why today? Why did I have to fuck up? But then I actually realized later on why I was getting back to porn. And I realized that by reading a very powerful book, Atomic Habits. That book literally changed my life. And if you have heard about it, or maybe you've already read it, let me tell you that even if you have read it and you're still struggling to quit porn, it is because you have not implemented its lessons. So it's what happens with most people. We read books, but don't really implement it. And then we ask ourselves why we still have the problems, right? We need to implement things when we read them. But what I understood in that book was that my identity was the problem. It was not the actions, right? I was, getting into those streaks, I was taking the right actions. But what I understood is that until my identity didn't change, I would always get back to watching porn. Because very simply, we always end up acting in line with our identity. And so until our identity doesn't change, we won't change. Even though we try, even though we fight, even though we have major streaks, we're always going to get back. It's kind of like gravity, right? You can try to fight it. You may build an airplane to get up, to get up, to get up. You fight it, but then you always have to get down, right? The trick is about kind of like, metaphorically speaking, changing your and switching gravity. Or if we wanted to have another like visual way of seeing this, it's kind of like a balance, right? Your identity is like a balance. And let's say that this is the old version of yourself who watches porn. This is the new version of yourself who doesn't. Right now, it's probably like this. So basically acting in line with a version of yourself who doesn't watch porn is basically an uphill battle. It is hard, and that's why you always end up getting down here. But the nice thing is that by taking the right action, we can actually switch this around, and then it will literally be just as hard to watch porn as it is for you right now to not watch it. And so it will literally be a downhill battle. It will literally come natural to you, and you won't watch porn anymore. It's literally as simple as that. So how do we actually change the balance, right? You have to understand that balance is just about weight, right? And so you have to imagine that it is kind of like putting the right weights on the right side of the balance. Or if you wanted to say this in another way, it's kind of like voting for a president, right? We're not voting for a president, we're voting for a version of ourselves. So you can vote for a version of yourself that is watching porn that you don't want to be like, or you can vote for the version of yourself that you want to be like, that is not watching porn and that does the other nice things that you want to be doing in life, right? And so what are our votes? What are the weights that we put on the balance, or the votes that we can vote for ourselves? They are our actions, our thoughts, and our words. Now, most people would just focus on the actions, which is actually very important. You have to take the right actions. If you tell yourself, I'm not someone who watches porn, but then you watch porn, doesn't make a lot of sense, right? Your brain will not believe you just like that. But the nice thing is that you can also reinforce it with thoughts and with also words by telling other people that you're no more someone who watches porn. You're really changing. You're no more that way. And telling yourself, I'm no more someone who watches porn. I am changing. And every single time you take the right actions, reinforcing it. But why is that so powerful? Because as said, your thoughts, your words, and your actions are kind of like votes. And so maybe you have 10 urges every day. And by doing 10 right actions, you're basically going to put 10 votes in the right, basically for the right version of yourself. But if you actually at the same time, every single time you do it, at least tell yourself once or twice, I am no more someone who watches porn. And because you have seen that, you've just taken the right actions, and you can reinforce it. You can give yourself a clap on your shoulder, you're putting another vote, and then another vote, and then you tell someone else, and you've just put another vote. So you literally could be putting 10 times more votes in for the version of yourself that you want to be becoming by also using your thoughts and your words. That's how powerful it is. Now, I've seen that I used to be really not believing in this, and it used to really take me a lot of time to change. Literally took me years to change my identity about watching porn. But then I started using this trick. I started to, first of all, identify the identity that I wanted to embody, define exactly on a piece of paper, write down, I am ... right? I am, for example, no more someone who watches porn, or I'm someone who doesn't watch porn, or I'm someone who doesn't fap, for example. And then obviously I was taking the right actions. But when I actually started to also, use my thoughts and my words, that's when I could change very quickly. Very, very quickly. Because your thoughts and how you feel about yourself, what you tell yourself, is really, really powerful. If you try to take the right actions, but at the same time you're there telling others, I'm someone who watches porn, I can't quit porn, and you tell yourself over and over again, you may be taking the right actions, like putting 10 votes for the right version of yourself, but then you're putting 100 fucking votes for the wrong version of yourself. So you really want to pay attention to this. Really important. Really important. So now you know exactly why your identity is so powerful, and also how to change it through your actions, through your thoughts, and through your words. But how do you make taking the right actions actually as easy as possible, as fast as possible, so that you can actually put as many votes as you can, and therefore change the balance and make it become a downhill battle? It's very simple. By reading that book, Atomic Habits, I basically discovered 4 main ways. Making it very invisible, making it unattractive, making it hard, and making it very unsatisfying. What is that it? It's obviously your habit. And so when it comes to the first step, making something very invisible, it was a really big mindset shift for me. Because what you need to understand is that very probably you have some specific cues that are going to trigger your urges, that are triggering you wanting to fap, that are triggering you also going to fap. because you might have the urges, but in specific situations, you still won't fap. And so what I needed to understand was that to make this habit harder for me, to make it invisible, and therefore, don't get the urges, don't get triggered, and therefore don't get into it, I had to understand my triggers and then eliminate them. Now, my personal triggers were being alone in my room after school, after having eaten a heavy carb meal, with my iPad, being bored. Those were the things that were basically triggering my urges. And so what did I do? I sold my iPad. I basically also made sure I wasn't bored alone in my room. So I basically got things to do so that I was not bored. I also ended up changing my diet, and I ended up doing things so that basically I wouldn't be having the same triggers. And to be really honest, that the crazy thing is that my life has totally changed. But when I get in situations where I am in my room alone, bored, still after 3 years, I start getting the urges because my brain has registered those triggers as a sign to get the urges. And so you really want to identify your triggers and then make sure to eliminate them. Second thing you can do is making it very unattractive. So the thing I used to be doing was very simply bombarding myself with NoFap videos on why porn was bad and why NoFap was actually helping me. And also I had been seeing, the negative effects on my own self. Couldn't look in a girl's eyes for even 1 second. Couldn't even imagine about talking to her. Couldn't, do hard things. I had zero motivation, very low energy, fucked up dopamine system, fucked up mental health. And so I really had vividly in my mind why I wanted to stop watching porn. And that's really, really important. The third thing you can do is making it very hard. So what do I mean by that? You really want to make going on those pages and fapping as hard as you can. So a few things you could be doing is downloading those apps that basically block those pages, or if you normally watch it on your iPad or whatever other device, and the specific time of the day, just eliminate it or just hide it or give it to someone else. Or if you normally do it when you're alone in your room, for example, you just make sure that if you, for example, have to study or work or read, you go outside or go with other people or go in a public place, in a library where you cannot fap, right? At least I hope so. And then when you've made it very hard for you, you also want to make it very unattractive, actually very punishing, not unattractive. So you do that by deciding literally right now a punishment you will be giving yourself if you do it. So it could be like downloading one of those apps, accountability partner apps, where someone who you don't really want to see that you're watching porn will be seeing if you're watching porn, maybe also what type of porn and how long you've been watching it. Then you could also be doing things like telling yourself you will be giving $10 to a person you don't like every single time you do it. So you really want to decide exactly how to make it very, very punishing. So right now, you should know exactly the one big reason why you can't quit porn, which is your identity. Until you change that, you're not going to change. So you know also right now that you can do it, through your actions, but also through positive affirmations, basically your thoughts, and by telling others. It's really, really powerful. Telling others, you always want to act in line with what you're telling others. And now you also know how to change as quickly as possible your identity, basically switch the weights by making the habit, very, very invisible. You want to find the cues and then eliminate them. You also know how to make it unattractive by really finding out the pros of not doing it and the cons of doing it. You also now know how to make it very hard. Be creative, take out a piece of paper and literally go through those 4 steps and ask yourself, how could I make this, invisible, unattractive, hard, and also unsatisfying? What punishment could you give yourself? Ask yourself that thing. It's really powerful. If you have come to this point of the video, I'm sure you're not someone who does just watch videos and not implement them. Otherwise, you would have probably already, clicked out. But if you really want to change your life, you have to take action. It's literally as simple as that. And now you have a few very powerful steps. The ones that got me to quit porn forever. Literally right now, it is hard for me to get on porn. It literally, those rare times where I get the thought, I just get a smile and you know, think to myself, nice try, but no. It's literally, I can't. Like, I could, but it's like so far away from how I see myself, right? It's like, you know, it's so distant. It's no more me. I cannot act in that way. It's like no more me. And that's so powerful. It's downhill battle right now. It's easy to not watch porn because I took these steps. So I really hope this video helped you out, and it only will, and I'm sure it will, if you actually take action. Anyways, hope you liked it, hope it helped you out. If it did, make sure to leave a like and to subscribe to not miss on my future ones. Thank you a lot for your time and for your attention. Wish you all the best, and see you very soon. Ciao.